What are you gonna do to me?
I am going to fix your ear.
Oh, and Wilberforce, Forge, Ohio?
Yes, sir.
What school?
I got a scholarship.
Yeah.
It changed television forever. It broke barriers that no sitcom had broken before. And behind the laughter, secrets were buried that wouldn't surface for decades. From network executives who tried to kill it before it aired, to cast members on the verge of quitting, to financial exploitation that left child stars broke, despite working on one of the most profitable shows in television history. The truth about The Cosby Show is far more complex than the warm family moments we remember. These are 20 secrets about The Cosby Show, hidden for years. And the bonus? A moment so powerful, it rewrote the rules of prime time forever. Are you ready to discover what really happened behind the scenes of America's favorite family? Did you know one cast member was so terrified they could barely speak for 2 entire seasons? Or that the network initially refused to air episodes addressing real issues facing black families? Subscribe now and hit that notification bell, because we're about to pull back the curtain on secrets that will change how you see this groundbreaking show forever. Number 20. The network didn't want a black family sitcom. Let's start with the secret that almost prevented The Cosby Show from existing at all. When Bill Cosby pitched The Cosby Show to NBC in 1983, executives were terrified. They told him flat out that sitcoms about black families didn't work, that white audiences wouldn't watch, that advertisers wouldn't buy time. Think about that for a moment. One of the most successful shows in television history was nearly killed before production even began because of racist assumptions about what American audiences would accept. NBC executives pointed to failed shows.
Dein Sohn Theo.
Oh, gut. Ich hab schon gedacht, ich bin es.
Sieh dir das an, Cliff.
Declining ratings and focus group data that suggested America wasn't ready. They had convinced themselves that a show centered on a black family, no matter how well written or performed, couldn't succeed in prime time. But Bill Cosby didn't back down. He'd already conquered stand-up comedy. He'd already proven himself as the first black actor to star in a dramatic television series with I Spy. And he knew exactly what he wanted to create: a show about an upper-middle-class black family that didn't rely on stereotypes or poverty narratives. A family that was educated, successful, and loving. NBC was desperate for a hit, so they reluctantly took the gamble. But notice what they did. They gave Cosby a limited episode order, minimal promotion, and a terrible Thursday night time slot, which they assumed would bury the show quietly. They were setting it up to fail. But when the pilot aired in September 1984, something unexpected happened. The ratings were massive. White families tuned in. Black families tuned in. Everyone was watching. By the end of season 1, The Cosby Show was the #1 show in America, and it stayed there for 5 consecutive years. It didn't just succeed despite the network's fears. It shattered them completely, proving that great storytelling transcends race, and that audiences were starving for something different. Can you imagine how different television history would be if NBC had succeeded in blocking this show? How many other groundbreaking shows were killed before they had a chance? Number 19. Felicia Rashad was pregnant, and they hid it brilliantly. Felicia Rashad played Claire Huxtable with elegance, strength, and impeccable style. But during season 3, she faced a challenge that could have derailed her character entirely. She was pregnant in real life, and the show's creators decided not to write it into the storyline. Claire already had 5 children, and adding another didn't fit the narrative they'd built, so they had to hide it. And the costume department went into absolute overdrive. They dressed Rashad in oversized blazers, long coats, and flowing dresses. They positioned her behind furniture constantly, had her carry large handbags and briefcases in front of her stomach. They shot scenes where she was seated whenever possible. The camera angles changed too.
Martin's mother can't stand me.
You may think that, but I'm sure that it just isn't true.
I happen to know it's true.
Favoring close-ups of her face rather than full-body shots. Watch the show again with this knowledge, and you'll start noticing it everywhere. In one episode, Claire spends almost the entire runtime sitting at the kitchen table, her midsection completely obscured by strategic positioning. The crew became masters of visual misdirection. blocking scenes so carefully that most viewers never noticed what was happening. Rashad gave birth between seasons, returned to set weeks later, and the show continued as if nothing had happened. It was a logistical magic trick, pulled off episode after episode, proving that sometimes the best secrets are the ones hiding in plain sight. Number 18. The sweaters became a cultural phenomenon by accident. Cliff Huxtable's sweaters were loud, colorful, and absolutely unforgettable. Geometric patterns, clashing colors, designs that seemed to defy all fashion logic. They became iconic, spawning merchandise, Halloween costumes, and eventually their own Wikipedia page. But here's what nobody knew. Bill Cosby didn't choose them. In fact, he hated them at first. The costume designer, Sarah Lemire, brought in a collection of bold, abstract sweaters from small designers and vintage shops, believing they'd make Cliff feel warm, approachable, and distinctly individual. When Cosby saw them, he balked. He thought they were too much, too ridiculous, not befitting a successful doctor. But Lemire convinced him to try just one for the pilot. The audience response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. People loved how the sweaters made Cliff feel real, like a dad who didn't care about being fashionable, just comfortable. So they kept going, finding more outrageous designs each season. By year 3, fashion magazines were writing feature articles about them. Designers were copying them. And Cosby, who'd resisted from the start, realized the sweaters had become armor, a visual signature that made Cliff Huxtable instantly recognizable. What started as a costume designer's gamble became one of television's most enduring fashion statements, proving that sometimes the strangest choices become the most memorable. Number 17. Malcolm Jamal Warner almost quit after season 2. Malcolm Jamal Warner was only 14 when he was cast as Theo Huxtable, the lovable, underachieving son. He handled the fame remarkably well at first, showing up on time, knowing his lines, charming audiences with his natural charisma. But by season 2, the pressure started crushing him. He was recognized everywhere, couldn't go to school normally, couldn't hang out with friends without being mobbed. Paparazzi followed him constantly. Tabloids made up stories about his personal life. And on set, the expectations kept rising. Directors wanted more. Writers gave him heavier storylines. And Cosby pushed him to be better, sharper, funnier. Warner started showing up late. He'd forget lines, seem distracted. And one day, he didn't show up at all.
I know.
You know what?
What you gonna say? And it's under control.
Producers found him sitting in his trailer, head in his hands, saying he couldn't do it anymore. He was exhausted, overwhelmed, and desperate for a normal teenage life. Bill Cosby sat with him for hours, not as a boss, but as a mentor. He shared his own struggles with early fame, the isolation, the weight of expectations that nobody else could understand. He told Warner he didn't have to stay, but if he did, they'd protect him better, give him space to breathe. Warner decided to stay, but that conversation changed how the show operated. They reduced his shooting days, hired tutors who actually cared about his education beyond checking boxes, and gave him real breaks between seasons. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to keep him from walking away. Think about how many child stars we've lost to the pressures of fame. Warner's story could have ended very differently if not for that intervention. Number 16. Tempest Bledsoe was terrified of Bill Cosby. Tempest Bledsoe was only 10 years old when she auditioned for the role of Vanessa Huxtable. She was nervous, shy, and completely intimidated by Bill Cosby, a comedy legend who seemed larger than life. When she got the part, she thought the fear would fade. It didn't. For the first 2 seasons, she could barely look Cosby in the eye. She'd rehearse her lines alone, terrified of making mistakes in front of him. During table reads, her voice would shake. On set, she'd stand as far from him as blocking allowed, hoping he wouldn't notice her. And Cosby? He absolutely noticed. But instead of calling her out or pushing her harder, he softened. He started talking to her between takes, asking about school, about her hobbies.
Mom, ich weiß, was dir fehlt. Etwas, das für uns alle von Nutzen wäre. Ein kleiner Anti-Stress-Hund.
Making jokes that had nothing to do with the show. He'd bring her snacks, compliment her reads, even when they weren't perfect. And slowly, deliberately, He built her confidence. By season 3, Bledsoe wasn't afraid anymore. She'd challenge him during rehearsals, improvise lines, even make him laugh during takes. Years later, she admitted that Cosby's patience was the only reason she survived those early years. She'd been ready to quit multiple times, convinced she wasn't good enough. But he saw something in her that she couldn't see in herself, and he refused to let her give up. Number 15. The show tackled serious issues networks tried to block. The Cosby Show was a sitcom, built on laughter and warmth, but Bill Cosby insisted it tackle real issues affecting black families, even when networks pushed back hard. In season 2, they wanted to do an episode about Theo's friend being illiterate. NBC said no, claiming it was too heavy, too preachy, not funny enough. Cosby fought for weeks, and eventually won, but only after agreeing to add more jokes to lighten the tone. The episode aired and received critical acclaim, with educators praising its sensitive handling of a difficult topic that affected millions of American children. Then they wanted to address teen pregnancy. The network panicked. They worried about advertisers pulling out, worried about controversy, worried about parents writing angry letters. Again, Cosby refused to back down. He brought in psychologists, educators, and community leaders to help craft the storyline responsibly.
Anything. Jan and Misa got a new bike today. It's really great.
That's nice.
The episode showed Denise's friend dealing with an unplanned pregnancy, facing hard choices without easy answers. It was groundbreaking for its time, handling the subject with honesty and compassion that was virtually unprecedented in sitcom television. But the fight to air it was brutal, with multiple script revisions and tense meetings with network executives who wanted to water down every meaningful moment. Cosby understood something the network suits didn't. Black families were dealing with these issues every day, and pretending they didn't exist wasn't helping anyone. So episode after episode, he pushed boundaries, forced conversations, and used comedy as a vehicle for something more profound. The show never stopped being funny, but it also never stopped being real. How many important conversations happened in American households because of these episodes that almost never aired? Number 14. The theme song was composed in one night. That opening theme of The Cosby Show, that upbeat, jazzy melody that became instantly recognizable, almost didn't exist. The show was weeks from premiere, and they still didn't have a theme song. Bill Cosby wanted something jazzy, something that reflected his love of music and set the right tone before a single line was spoken. The network suggested using a popular song, something already established, to save time and money. Cosby refused. He wanted original music, something that belonged only to the Huxtables. So he called in composer Stu Gardner, a jazz musician he'd worked with before, and gave him an impossible deadline: one night. Gardner went into the studio at 8 p.m. with a piano, a drum machine, and a head full of ideas. He worked through the entire night, experimenting with melodies, trying different rhythms, layering sounds, until something clicked. By 6 a.m., he had it. A bright, bouncing theme that felt both sophisticated and playful, perfectly capturing the show's spirit. He called Cosby, played it over the phone, and Cosby said yes immediately. No notes, no changes, just pure instinct. The theme was recorded, mixed, and delivered just days before the pilot aired. And that melody, created in a single desperate night, became one of television's most beloved openings, proving that sometimes the best work happens when there's no time to overthink. Number 13. Keshia Knight. Pulliam was cast at age 4 and changed everything. When casting began for Rudy Huxtable, the youngest child, producers wanted someone around 7 or 8 years old, someone who could handle scripts and hit marks reliably. Then, Keshia Knight Pulliam walked in. She was only 4 years old, tiny, and completely fearless. During her audition, she didn't just read lines, she performed, bringing energy and personality that left everyone in the room stunned. Bill Cosby watched her and immediately knew she was Rudy, but the network hesitated, worried that a 4-year-old couldn't handle the demands of a network sitcom. The schedule was grueling, the scripts were complex, the technical requirements were sophisticated. Cosby insisted, and they relented on one condition. If she couldn't keep up, they'd recast immediately.
Well, I'll ask Maria's mother and father.
Can a few other friends sleep over?
Pulliam proved them wrong from day one. She memorized lines faster than adult actors. She nailed comedic timing that seemed impossible for her age. And she brought a natural charm that audiences couldn't resist. Directors started writing more scenes for Rudy because Pulliam made everything better. She'd improvise reactions that were funnier than what was scripted, deliver lines with unexpected inflections that added layers to simple jokes. And her chemistry with Cosby? It was magical. By the end of season 1, she was nominated for an Emmy, becoming the youngest actress ever nominated at that time. What was supposed to be a small supporting role became central to the show's heart, and Pulliam, barely old enough for kindergarten, carried it effortlessly. Number 12. The Huxtable house wasn't in Brooklyn. Every episode established the Huxtables as a Brooklyn family, firmly rooted in New York City. Cliff worked at a hospital in Manhattan. The kids went to schools in the borough. References to Brooklyn were constant and specific, but the actual house used for exterior shots wasn't in Brooklyn at all. It was in Greenwich Village, Manhattan, at 10 St. Luke's Place, one of the most picturesque streets in the city. Producers chose it because the brownstone facade was perfect, exactly the look they needed for an upper-middle-class family home. They figured no one would check, that the establishing shots would blend seamlessly with the studio-filmed interiors. And for years, no one noticed.
All right, sweetheart, tonight we'll change the conversation for you. We'll talk about traffic and the recession. Please set the table for 5.
But then fans started visiting, tracking down the location, taking photos on the stoop. They'd tell friends they'd been to the Huxtables' Brooklyn home, not realizing they'd actually been in Manhattan the entire time. The secret didn't come out until years later when a location manager mentioned it casually in an interview. By then, the house had become a tourist attraction, with people lining up daily to recreate the opening credits. The owners eventually had to put up a polite sign asking visitors to respect their privacy. It was a small continuity error that grew into a cultural landmark, proving that sometimes fiction becomes more real than reality itself. Number 11. Lisa Bonet's exit was messy and covered up. Lisa Bonet played Denise Huxtable, the free-spirited second daughter who became a breakout character. Her bohemian style, her confidence, her refusal to conform, it all resonated with audiences, especially young women. So NBC gave her a spin-off, A Different World, which premiered in 1987. But behind the scenes, tensions were building. Bonet clashed with Bill Cosby over creative direction, over her image, over her choices outside the show. She posed for magazines in ways Cosby found inappropriate for the family-friendly brand. She dated musicians he disapproved of. And when she got pregnant in real life by rock star Lenny Kravitz, everything exploded. Cosby wanted her to hide the pregnancy, to keep it quiet until after the season wrapped. He worried about how it would affect the show's image and Denise's character. Bonet refused. She was proud, unapologetic, and unwilling to pretend. So, bringing her back to the Cosby Show for one season where they awkwardly incorporated her pregnancy into the plot. But the damage was done. The working relationship was shattered. And after that season, Denise disappeared from the show almost entirely, written off to Africa with barely an explanation. The official story was that Bonet wanted to pursue other opportunities. The reality was messier, a clash of values and control that neither side wanted to discuss publicly. A young woman asserting her independence against a powerful man who demanded compliance. Number 10. The living room set cost more than most houses. The Huxtable living room became one of the most recognizable sets in television history. The warm earth tones, the African art on the walls, the eclectic mix of furniture that somehow worked perfectly together. But what audiences didn't know was just how expensive it all was. The set designers didn't use cheap props or mass-produced furniture. They filled the space with genuine African artifacts, original artwork, and custom-made pieces that cost thousands of dollars each. Bill Cosby insisted on authenticity, wanting the Huxtable home to reflect Black excellence and cultural pride. He personally approved every painting, every sculpture, every piece of fabric, The total cost of dressing that single set exceeded $200,000, more than the average American home was worth in 1984. NBC executives nearly had heart attacks when they saw the bills rolling in, but Cosby didn't budge. He argued that if they wanted the show to feel real, to represent an upper-middle-class black family authentically, they couldn't cut corners. The investment paid off dramatically. Critics praised the show's visual richness, and black families saw themselves reflected on television in ways they never had before. Not as poor or struggling, but as cultured, successful, and surrounded by beauty. That living room wasn't just a set, it was a statement, a declaration that black homes could be beautiful, cultured, and worth celebrating on America's biggest stage. Number 9. Sabrina LeBeouf felt invisible among the cast. Sabrina LeBeouf played Sandra Huxtable, the eldest daughter who was added after the pilot. She was Princeton-educated, serious, and responsible, everything her younger siblings weren't. But despite being part of the main cast, LeBeouf often felt like an outsider. The writers gave her fewer storylines, less screen time, and when she did appear, her scenes were usually brief and forgettable. While the other kids got episodes exploring their dreams, their struggles, their growth, Sandra remained one-dimensional, the responsible one who had it all figured out. LeBeouf later admitted she struggled with feeling overlooked. She'd watch her castmates get Emmy nominations and magazine covers while she faded into the background. She'd pitch story ideas that went nowhere, ask for more to do, and get vague promises that never materialized. Part of the problem was that Sandra was already successful and stable, which made her less dramatically. Conflict drives comedy, and a character who doesn't need fixing is hard to write compelling stories about. But LeBeouf believed there was more to it, a sense that the show didn't quite know what to do with her character. She stayed professional, never complained publicly during the show's run, but the experience left scars. Years later, she spoke candidly about feeling invisible on one of America's most watched shows, a painful irony that still haunts her. Number 8. Bill Cosby rewrote scripts without telling writers. The Cosby Show had a talented writing staff, Emmy-winning professionals who crafted stories week after week. But Bill Cosby didn't always trust their vision. He'd take scripts home, read them overnight, and return the next day with massive changes. Entire scenes rewritten, jokes replaced, storylines shifted. Sometimes he'd change dialogue minutes before filming, scribbling notes in the margins and handing them to actors on set. The writers were furious. They felt undermined, disrespected, cut out of their own creative process. Several quit over it, frustrated that their work was being altered without discussion or collaboration. But Cosby didn't see it as disrespect. He saw it as protection. This was his show, his vision, his name on the title. He'd lived the experiences he wanted to portray, understood the nuances of black family life in ways he felt the predominantly white writing staff couldn't fully grasp. So he rewrote, adjusted, and fine-tuned until every episode felt authentic to him. The tension created two camps on set, those who respected Cosby's hands-on approach and those who resented it deeply. But the results were undeniable. The show felt personal, lived in, real, because in many ways, it was Cosby's autobiography disguised as fiction. Number 7. The show saved NBC from bankruptcy. In 1984, NBC was dying. The network was hemorrhaging money, losing viewers to ABC and CBS, and facing serious discussions about whether it could survive. Their primetime lineup was a graveyard of failed shows. Advertisers were pulling out in droves. Executives were quietly preparing for the possibility of shutting down or selling to a larger conglomerate. Then The Cosby Show premiered on Thursday night, and everything changed overnight. The ratings were extraordinary, pulling numbers NBC hadn't seen in years. But more importantly, it created a domino effect. The show's success allowed NBC to build an entire Thursday night lineup around it, launching shows like Family Ties, Cheers, and later Seinfeld and Friends. Advertisers came rushing back, willing to pay premium rates for time slots near Cosby. Within 2 years, NBC went from last place to first, dominating the ratings and printing money. Industry analysts later calculated that The Cosby Show generated over $1 billion in revenue for the network during its run. It didn't just save NBC, it transformed the network into a powerhouse that would dominate television for the next 2 decades. And the irony wasn't lost on anyone. The show the network almost didn't make became the only thing that kept them alive. Number 6. Felicia. Rashad and Bill Cosby clashed constantly. On screen, Cliff and Claire Huxtable had one of television's healthiest marriages, built on mutual respect, humor, and genuine affection. But behind the scenes, the actors playing them fought constantly. Felicia Rashad was a classically trained actress who approached every scene with precision and preparation. Bill Cosby was a comedian who trusted his instincts and improvised freely. Their methods clashed immediately. Rashad wanted to rehearse, to block scenes carefully, to understand character motivations. Cosby wanted to feel it in the moment, to play off energy, to let things unfold naturally. During table reads, they'd argue about line delivery, about timing, about intention. Directors learned to give them space, letting them work through disagreements before filming. Sometimes the tension helped, adding a spark to their scenes that felt electric. Other times it made shooting painful, with takes ruined by visible frustration. Cast members would joke about needing referee whistles when Cliff and Claire rehearsed together. But despite the clashes, or perhaps because of them, their on-screen chemistry was undeniable. The push and pull between Rashad's discipline and Cosby's spontaneity created something neither could have achieved alone. They never became close friends off-camera, but they respected each other's talent enough to make it work. Number 5. The show's ratings dropped when it addressed real racism. The Cosby Show carefully balanced comedy with social commentary. But in Season 6, they crossed a line that made audiences uncomfortable. The episode featured Theo's girlfriend being harassed by a store security guard who assumed she was shoplifting because she was black. It was raw, honest, and deeply painful, showing racism not as a historical artifact, but as present-day reality. When the episode aired, the ratings took an unprecedented hit. Millions of white viewers turned off their televisions, unwilling to confront the uncomfortable truth. Advertisers complained, saying they'd signed up for family comedy, not political statements. NBC executives called emergency meetings, worried that the show's golden formula was breaking. Bill Cosby was devastated, but not surprised. He'd known the risk, had fought to air the episode anyway because he felt it mattered more than ratings. What hurt most was the message it sent. Audiences were happy to watch a successful black family, as long as they didn't mention the obstacles that made such success rare. The ratings recovered the following week, but the lesson lingered. There were limits to what America was willing to hear, even from a show they claimed to love. Number 4. Jeffrey Owens was broke despite being on a hit show. Jeffrey Owens played Elvin Thibodeau, Sandra's husband, for multiple seasons. He appeared regularly, had significant storylines, and was part of one of television's biggest shows. But when The Cosby Show ended, Owens couldn't find work. Roles dried up, auditions went nowhere. And despite his recognizable face, Hollywood moved on. Years later, someone photographed him working at Trader Joe's, bagging groceries to make ends meet. The photo went viral, sparking cruel jokes and mockery across social media. People couldn't believe that someone from The Cosby Show was working retail, as if appearing on a sitcom guaranteed lifetime wealth. But Owens's story was more common than people realized. He hadn't been a series regular, hadn't earned the massive salaries the main cast commanded, and unlike them, he didn't have producer credits or syndication royalties padding his bank account. When the mockery reached its peak, something unexpected happened. The entertainment industry rallied around him. Tyler Perry offered him work. Other producers reached out with roles, and Owens handled it all with grace, refusing to be ashamed of honest work and using his moment in the spotlight to discuss the realities of being a working actor. His dignity transformed humiliation into respect. Number 3. The final episode was filmed during a real family tragedy. In April 1992, the cast gathered to film the series finale. It should have been a celebration. 8 years of unprecedented success coming to a planned, triumphant close. But the mood on set was somber, heavy with unspoken grief. Just weeks earlier, Bill Cosby's only son, Ennis, had been murdered in Los Angeles, shot during a robbery while changing a flat tire. The loss shattered Cosby, who'd built an entire career celebrating fatherhood. Now his real-life role as father had ended in unspeakable tragedy. Production had paused immediately after Ennis's death, giving Cosby time to grieve. But when filming resumed for the finale, everyone could see he was broken. His eyes were hollow, his famous smile forced. Between takes, he'd disappear to his dressing room, and crew members would hear him crying. The cast rallied around him, particularly Malcolm Jamal Warner, who'd grown close to Ennis over the years. They filmed the finale in pieces, giving Cosby breaks whenever he needed them, shooting around his grief. When the cameras finally stopped rolling, there were no celebrations, no wrap party, just quiet goodbyes and the knowledge that this ending, meant to be joyful, would forever be shadowed by real loss. The show that celebrated family ended with a father's heart irreparably broken. Number 2. The Syndication. Deal made everyone rich except the kids. When The Cosby Show ended, the syndication deals began. The show was worth billions, airing multiple times daily across hundreds of channels worldwide. Bill Cosby, as creator and star, made a fortune. Felicia Rashad negotiated points and earned millions. Even producers and writers got residuals that set them up for life. But the child actors, Malcolm Jamal Warner, Tempest Bledsoe, and Keshia Knight Pulliam, got almost nothing. Their contracts, signed when they were minors, didn't include syndication clauses. Their parents or guardians had agreed to terms that seemed generous at the time but didn't account for the show's massive afterlife. While episodes continued generating revenue for decades, the kids who'd grown up on screen saw none of it. Warner later spoke about the injustice, how he'd given 8 years of his childhood to a show that made billions, yet he struggled financially as an adult. Bledsoe worked steadily, but never achieved the financial security the show's success should have provided. Pulliam faced similar struggles, taking jobs purely for money rather than artistic fulfillment. The system had failed them, exploiting child labor in ways that were legal but deeply unfair. Their story became a cautionary tale that eventually led to better protections for young actors in Hollywood. Number 1. Bill Cosby's later crimes destroyed the show's legacy. For decades, The Cosby Show represented the pinnacle of television achievement. It broke barriers, changed perceptions, brought joy to millions. Then the truth came out. In 2014, women began coming forward with allegations of sexual assault against Bill Cosby, accusations spanning decades. More than 60 women eventually accused him of drugging and assaulting them, painting a picture of systematic predatory behavior hidden behind America's favorite dad persona. In 2018, Cosby was convicted and imprisoned. The man who'd played America's favorite father was revealed as a monster. The fallout was immediate and total. Networks pulled the show from syndication. Streaming services removed it from their libraries. The cast members, many of whom had initially defended Cosby, fell silent or issued statements distancing themselves. The show that had been a cultural touchstone became toxic, unwatchable, its legacy poisoned by the crimes of its creator. Felicia Rashad faced backlash for supporting Cosby. Malcolm Jamal Warner struggled to reconcile the mentor who'd guided him with the predator who'd hurt so many. And millions of fans faced an impossible question. How do you remember a show that meant everything when its star represents everything wrong? The Cosby Show didn't just end, it was erased. A cautionary tale about separating art from the artist when the artist's crimes are unforgivable. Bonus: the moment that changed, prime time forever. But before we close, there's one more secret that deserves recognition: the bonus moment that rewrote the rules of prime time. In Season 1, Episode 2, there's a scene between Cliff and Theo that changed television forever. Theo, struggling in school, tells his father he doesn't need good grades because he's going to be regular people, like his parents. What followed was a speech that countless parents have quoted for decades. Cliff Huxtable looks at his son and delivers a monologue about excellence, about effort, about the importance of education, not because of economic necessity, but because of personal dignity. It wasn't preachy. It wasn't heavy-handed. It was a black father telling his black son that he expected greatness and that expectation was rooted in love. Network executives watched that scene during screening and panicked. They thought it was too serious, would kill the comedy, would alienate viewers. Bill Cosby refused to cut it. That scene became one of the most quoted moments in television history. It showed that sitcoms could address real issues without losing their humor. That family shows could have genuine emotional depth, and it established The Cosby Show as something more than entertainment. It became a cultural force that shaped how America talked about family, education, and black excellence. The complex legacy. The Cosby Show changed television forever, proving that black families could be the center of American prime time. But its legacy is complicated, inseparable from the man who created it and the crimes he committed. The cast gave extraordinary performances, the writers told essential stories, and audiences found something meaningful in the Huxtables' living room. That truth remains, even as the rest crumbles. Now I want to hear from you. Did you watch The Cosby Show growing up? How do you reconcile loving a show created by someone who committed such terrible crimes? Which of these secrets shocked you the most? And what do you think? Can we separate art from the artist? Or is some art too tainted by its creator's actions to ever be enjoyed again? Share your thoughts in the comments below. This is a conversation worth having. If you enjoyed this deep dive into television history, subscribe and hit that notification bell for more secrets from your favorite classic shows. And if you think others should know these hidden truths about The Cosby Show, share this video right now. The truth is complicated, the history is important, and understanding both helps us move forward.